All right, hi guys. My name is Arjun, and this is my video recitation sort of for doing programming projects blazingly fast. It's not meant to be replacement of the recitation which you have which next week or this week whenever you're watching, but it would help you give context for the recitation material and build up knowledge on how you can work on the projects in CSE 310. So we'll be covering this for all three systems, including Linux. My name is Arjun, and let's proceed. So there are three overall approaches for working on the projects. So the first approach is relying fully on Gradescope. This is the chosen method of the devil. Please do not do that. And the second approach is SSHing into the ASU general server, which I'll be showing you how to do shortly. And it is the recommended way. Third way is to do everything locally. This is if you're a tryhard, but it's also the cool way to do it because I did it when I was taking this class last semester. But unfortunately, it's not as straightforward as it would seem, even if you know that we are using G++ version 12 for Gradescope, to my knowledge, because, for example, Mac users have G++, but it's aliased. So if you do which G++, you will get that it's aliased to Clang from the from my sources. So unless you know what you're doing, I would advise against it. But if you're curious, and this is the blazingly fast approach, or as the primarian would say, the coconut oil method, uh, I would I can help you out, but pay me on Discord. I can make a video on my workflow. But for now, I would recommend doing SSH. So this is the approach which we recommend. You write code in your chosen text editor, then you would be compiling it with G++ on Linux. Then you will be testing it and then making sure that your code is running properly by debugging before finally submitting on Gradescope. I will be making another video eventually on debugging and testing closer to the release of Project 1. So rest assured about that. And yeah, you're welcome for the crisp and sharp diagram. So what do I need to do to start SSHing? So if you're a Mac or Linux distro user, you should already have a SSH client. So you can relax and let me handle it for you Windows people. So I've added three sub points here for Windows people, which is PowerShell, installing WSL, and installing PuTTY. So let's look at those three options. PowerShell. Never mind. I don't know. So you're on your own. I have never used PowerShell much for my programming purposes. I've never felt the need to because I always had WSL or a Linux distro on hand. But if you really choose to for some reason, then you can go ahead with that. If you want to install WSL, then let me do a quick info session for you. Let's click on this link here. And we can see that we have a command here called WSL install. And WSL install is basically meant to install whichever distro you want. I have chosen to install Ubuntu on my system. Okay, let me show you how that would work. So let me share my screen. So let me open PowerShell here. So this would how will look for you. We'll be doing something like this: WSL space double hyphen install. I won't execute that, but this is pretty much how you would be doing your installation if you're a Windows user, of course. All right, going back to our slides. So you might have to turn on virtualization for this. There are a lot of tutorials on how you can go about doing this. So I decided to not make an entire segment on this section. If you have difficulties, please refer to online resources. It should be relatively straightforward because of this link. I'll putting this and all the subsequent links on in the description. You can also choose to use PuTTY, and PuTTY is another method for SSHing. Oops, And this video from a fellow ASU student does use PuTTY, and you will be getting this video in the Canvas shell for CSE 310. He's using the PuTTY configuration here, and you can look into it if you want to rely on this. I just don't recommend it because it's extremely slow, and I would rather use my terminal for quick SSHing and working on the code. But of course, I don't SSH. I just do everything locally. Okay, so how do I SSH and then run my code generally? So the first thing which you should get familiar with, and this knowledge will really, really help you out in CSE 365, is being very well familiar with the basic Linux commands. So here is another video by the same guy who made the video on PuTTY, which goes through the basic commands like ls, cat, and cd, rm, pwd, rmdir, migdir. So this stuff is really helpful, and I would recommend you get familiarity with that. There's another website called Over the Wire, which has banded games. And one college in the CSE 365 platform recommends going through the first 10 levels. It's quite simple I should not say it's simple, but it will help you get familiar with how to use shell built-ins and some efficiency with the terminal. But at this point, I will and I should show you how to use SSH, SCP, and the make commands. So let me share my screen again. Okay, so you should be able to see my terminal now. I won't go through the commands I'm typing, so I hope you can follow along. CSU. I'm just showing you how I'm using the SCP command for my purposes to show you the power of Linux utilities or Unix utilities. So SCP command essentially stands for secure file copy. So it copies commands from any server you want. In this case, it's Dojo Punk Knowledge with the file path provided to the current directory. In this case, I need to provide a key. That's why I have the I flag. And since it's a folder, I have to put the recursive flag here. If you want more information on how to use these commands, then you can do man SCP. I'm using D or U to scroll up and down. Become familiar with man. And there's another package called TLDR, which you can install using sudo apt install TLDR. So execute the command, and this will essentially give you a summarized version of those commands. Not TLDR man, I meant to do TLDR LCP. So this shows you frequently used commands like copying a local file to a remote host, for example. You can also do the other way around by copying a file from remote host to a local directory, which I showed you just now. And I also had the CPI file, SCPI flag for authentication and the R flag for copying the contents of a directory from a remote host to a local directory. So get familiar with the SCP command will help you a lot, but you can also, of course, rely on just using the website, which ASU General Server offers. You'll be learning more about this in the recitations. So please go for those. And I should also teach you how to SSH. So SSH Aketan3, which is my ASU right ID. Please don't email me, just use Discord, please. And once I SSH, I will have to ask, it will ask for my password to make sure I'm an ASU student and not a UFA student. I want to be doing a duo push, please. Send me a notification. Yes. Approved. Great. Okay. So now I have a file here called nerds. So the file nerds is a ASCII text file. Yeah. And I can show you, I made this file on January 12th. Can you guess what's inside? Bruh. Bruh, I made this file on 12 channels. So this basically shows you it's persistent. And let me show you that it has G++ installed. There we go. It has make installed, user bin make. This is exactly what we want. And yeah, you can use these commands to run your make to run your make file. So you'll be doing something to make pj1 when you get the sample make file and you get the project released. Yeah, so that's how you will be using the general server in combination with SCP for superpowers. Now that that's done, let's go back to our slides. Oh yeah, please note that the SCP command has nothing to do with the SCP foundation. Great, I can run my code now, but how do I test and debug? So these are two separate questions which have nuanced answers. It also depends on how you prefer to work. So I will be making a video on this topic soonish, closer to when Project One releases for you guys. Is there anything else I should keep in mind when doing the projects? Yes, please create good coding habits. You can do so by taking the following points to heart. Modular design. So you can see here for another video on this topic. And the same guy, our same friend, has made these videos so far on PuTTY, Linux basic commands, and modular design now. So I would recommend you watch through those, which basically teaches you that you should not have one file which contains all your functionality. Separate your file, separate your folder structure if you wish to make it more readable, to make it more easier to debug if you find there being problems with a certain section of the code. So rather than having your linked list, your stack, your uh, min heap, max heap in the same file, have separate files. Have min heap.cpp, stack.cpp, linked list.cpp, for example. Incremental development has to do with making sure that before you move on to the next function, you are ensuring that it's the function you have just worked on is working. So you would run it locally, you would test it locally, and that makes sure that you don't become one of those students last semester who, I quote, said, I have finished writing my code, but it does not compile / does not run. Don't be that student and learn how to develop your code incrementally. This will make you a better programmer as well. The third point is something which I'm working on as well, in the sense that I'm not using ChatGPT, but I mean in the sense that rather than even using Google as your first step, you should try to think of the problem you're trying to solve logically. So you'll see that with more complicated projects, GPT becomes more and more useless and more confusing and more problematic. And it's more important for you to know how to debug or solve problems with your own brain and know what you want to search for before even hitting enter on a Google search. So in fact, even Google should not be your first step. Keep these 3 points in mind when you're working on your projects in this class, as well as for any personal projects, my opinion. If you have any questions, please ask us in the homework help forum. There's a lot of TAs. We love to help you out. Please make sure to put the project setup /test tag. The purpose of this is that by using a forum which is cleanly organized, and you make sure that you give an appropriate title for your question and asking good questions, you'll also be helping classmates, your fellow classmates who have similar questions. So in case they're having trouble, they can just refer to your post, and we don't need to repeat ourselves. So stick to using the forum rather than relying on the channel. That is for quick questions, in which case, in the case where you feel that the forum is not suitable. So be considerate. That's all from me. Thank you so much. Take care. And please do not subscribe. Yeah, please do not subscribe. And come to my recitations on Mondays at 3:35 in LSE B04 in the spring 2024 semester. Thank you.